All right, so we're just waiting for it to go live. We are live again. I am so sorry. Like I was telling Theresa, my internet completely cut out. It stopped everything. So we should be good now. We are going to go in and share some stuff. Again, I will introduce myself. I am Melissa Kretschler. I am a mindset coach. I focus on removing your negative energies and your negative traumatic experiences and creating a positive lesson from each of them. So, Theresa, I'm going to hand it over to you and ask you to share yourself, introduce yourself, what your title is, what your business is, and then we will, again, keep going from there.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Melissa. This is going to be so much fun. I can tell we do a lot of things the same way. I am Theresa Woodsong. I am first and foremost a channel and a teacher. I channel information that's pertinent to what's going on in your life that you would like to change right now. And then I teach you how to use that to change whatever it is you'd like to change. And that's very similar, as I said, to what Melissa does, except we have different nuances and flavors because every channel, every psychic is totally different. Through my own personal experience and through my client work, I started realizing that there are patterns in women going through divorce, women who recently have been divorced, that are really common and all present the same type of challenges for women in these situations. And it mostly has to do with your power of choice and the way you manage your energy, because that's how we create our lives, right? Is the energy you embody. Esther Hicks refers to it as vibration. I like to think of it as the way you're being in your life. And there are different patterns in our culture totally supports this. In fact, there is, it's like when you're in a situation like divorce and you realize that something you've invested your whole life in is not working, there are cultural patterns like feeling like you're a failure or being so wrung out that you can't get the resolve going. And when you're going through this, these cultural patterns are like under a microscope and blow up, because divorce is inherently a new beginning, but our cultural conditioning does not teach us or give us the tools to look at it that way. So that's what I do. I help people, I help women specifically who are going through divorce or who have recently been divorced, create their own rules and find a way to make it a bright new beginning and heal their hearts and feed their souls and just say, okay, this is the way people have been doing divorce for the last 40, 50 years. It's not the scarlet letter it used to be, but it's still, oh, it's a bummer. Oh, that sucks. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, your ex must be a terrible person. And all of that rebounds on you in a way.
Absolutely.
But all of that rebounds on you. And I help people shift all that and make it a bright new beginning. And that was a little wordy, but that's what I do.
No, that's perfectly fine. So I just want to interject for anybody who's watching. I'm going to say hi to Peggy because she said hi. For anybody who's watching, joining, make sure if you want to ask some questions, whether we're live, whether we're on the replay, whatever it may be, feel free to ask some questions, get interactive with our conversation. Peggy and I are here to answer your questions, to enlighten you to what we do, enlighten you on how we can help you, and enlighten you to create your dream life and heal your traumas. So I do have a few questions for you, Theresa, and let's get started for those. So idealistically, who is it that you're here to serve? Who are your ideal clients, and who do you offer maximum transformation to?
Excellent question. I have heard more and more women recently, like I just heard the other day, a woman's friend had just gotten a divorce and they gave her a party. It was a new beginning party. And she knew that this is a new beginning, but she's stuck. You know, she knows it's a new beginning, but she doesn't really feel empowered to make it so. She doesn't know what she needs to do to make it so. She knows she has a lot of challenges, and she knows she's kind of stuck. And it's like she can see this bright light shining over here, but she cannot see the way to get there.
Yeah.
And that's the ideal person.
So in essence, your ideal clients are the one who are feeling with the new beginning that they don't know where, like, for me, I've been married coming up, well, just over 9 years. My husband and I have been married. He's my twin flame, my ideal partner. Now, in that, if it was to end, it would be traumatic. I wouldn't know, like, I've lived my life for so long as a spouse, as, you know, a wife and mother, that I would sit there and even being spiritual and enlightened in mindset work, it would still be quite the blow and quite the overwhelming task of starting new. It would be, well, where am I starting? What do I do now? Like, how do I find myself again after being this person for the last 10 years, right? And so I definitely get where that struggle would be, and I think that you helping women to overcome those struggles and those hurdles, because they're idealistically they're hurdles, is amazing, and I commend you for that, because right now I've never been through that, and I think that's where you've already been through that. You've already, you know, as a coach myself, and you being a coach, 99% of the time as a coach, one of our number one certifications for being a coach is we've been there, done that. We know what that feels like. We know how to make that less of a hurdle, less of a struggle, less of that feeling of lost. And that's amazing. Like I said, that you get to the point on that and are able to help people overcome. These two questions are kind of hand in hand, and that would be, why do you do what you do? And how did your experiences, because I know it was your experiences, how do your experience shape what you do? What is your specific experience bring to the table that it necessarily wouldn't for other people?
That's a really interesting question. I was born with a really unusual perception, and I'm like, I think a lot of people your age, there are a lot more people who are psychically in tune, and a lot more people who recognize, you know what, we have to change the way the world is. But I'm like, 20, 30 years ahead of that. I was like one of the weird, I was just a problem in the culture, right? There was no support going, oh yes, listen to your voices, dear. So I kind of started out, not really feeling secure in claiming who I was and showing up in that way. And going through the divorce, I was aware of the energetic connections. And I was aware that I had created this. Like, yes, my husband was not really contributing to the marriage the way I wanted, but I acknowledged that I knew that I had attracted that there was something in me that attracted that. And there was something in me that was creating this feeling stuck, but I could not see how to change it, because you're so immersed in it, and it becomes so, yes, natural. It's like the fish in the water, right? You can't see it. And I was kind of double whammied, because I had brain damage, incurred brain damage. We decided to get a divorce. We all got brain damage, actually. And then it took 2 years of dealing with all that before we actually went through with the divorce. So I had, yes, you get stuck in a divorce. I've seen it with my clients, but I also had this brain damage thing that really made it super hard for me to get, like, I knew what was possible. I knew what I wanted to do, but I just couldn't see the shift. And then the struggle of me getting here is really what informs what I do. and really has made me passionate about, oh my God, it's so hard until it's easy. And I know I can make it a lot easier for women. And
Absolutely.
so that they don't have to go through what I went through, because I had to stumble in the dark and try this and try that. And it took me a lot longer than it needed to get where I am today. So that's it.
Absolutely. And that's important. You said that, like, my generation. Yeah. Okay. My generation, definitely. I find it more my children's generation is going to be very open and encouraging. I was attacked by a negative entity when I was 12. And I didn't have anybody in my immediate circle who explained it to me, who, encouraged my gifts and abilities. So I blocked everything. I didn't know about mediumship. I was watching, The Craft at 10 and going, I'm totally a witch. This is great. But I never really understood it. And that didn't come until about 2-3 years ago when I saw my first medium. And so for me now, it's like, wow, my daughter, I don't necessarily believe in God. I don't believe in, structured religion. I believe in a higher power, but I don't believe in a structured religion. And my daughter goes to a Catholic school. So for me, sitting here going, okay, so she'll come home and she'll be like, Mom, I spoke to God today. And I'm like, right on. What did you talk about? Like, this is great, right? And I think that for your generation and mine starting out, we didn't have that, right? We had that rigid, okay, you need to be this way, you need to think this way, you need to do it this way. Right. And for your generation especially, not so much mine, divorce was a hell no. Like, for my grandparents, my parents, it was a hell no. Like, my mom got divorced, but still it was taboo, right? And it was like talking about sex and talking about, religion, and a lot of that growing up for you was taboo. So,
well, and I think a lot, actually people my daughter's age, she's in her mid-20s, it's statistically they're showing stronger marriages. Because I think, like, it was totally taboo. Like, it was, I remember when I was in 3rd grade, somebody was getting divorced, and it was like, what have you heard about that? It was just like such a scandal, and so much. Instead of supporting these people, going, man, your marriage has ended. What can we do to help you? Everybody was just cruel about it. Yeah. And then, so, a little bit later, like in the 70s, a lot of people were getting a divorce, but it was kind of like, I saw the same shift with, oh, we're not going to hit our kids anymore. But nobody said, well, how do we encourage cooperation? It was like, nobody looked at that. Okay, if we're not going to beat them into submission, what are we going to do as an alternative?
There's our other option.
Yeah, there are a lot of other options. Yeah. But so there were a lot of poor kids who were just like, the parents didn't know what they were doing. They didn't stop to think about it. So, I think there were a lot of kids who were actually disserved. Yeah. I'm not saying that being beaten would have been better, but.
Well, in some cases, yes. Not necessarily beaten, but absolutely some discipline. I am not against discipline. I am not against, divorce or anything like that. I believe I watched a video, and don't quote me because I don't have the facts right in front of me. But there are still some cultures and some locations that once a woman is widowed or divorced, she is completely an outcast. Not just divorced, but even as a widow, she is completely and utterly homeless and outcast from the rest of the world.
She doesn't have her man.
She has no male to support her, and I find that wrong. And I think even men, I know that you specifically work with women, and this is why I work with men and women. I find that men, like, if I left my husband, God, he'd lose his crap. Like, he would be devastated, because him and I have that relationship, right? And we're very dependent on each other. And he doesn't have that support, right? Men would look at him, oh, go find another chick, or, and even for the male aspect of that, if you go through a divorce, people are like, oh yeah, let's go party. Let's go, get some hookers and blow and,
Right.
whatever. Right. And they don't think about that the emotional aspect of that, right? Men don't, not all men, but men don't necessarily have the same resources that we do to get through those situations and ideals, right? So that would be something interesting to look into as well, right?
Well, that's really valid. And actually, I gave this a lot of thought because the world we are on the cusp of a big change.
Oh,
and
yes.
I know men have been screwed over by the past paradigms as much as women have, every bit as much, if not more, in a lot of ways. So I considered very much working with men as well, but for the sanctuary I want to provide, I think that right now it would impede on a lot of women's ability to express themselves within the group.
Yeah.
If there were men there.
No, absolutely. And I don't necessarily see men enjoying that group aspect, right?
Right.
I would suggest futuristically going forward, if you did decide to work with men, that may be more of a one-on-one, because they're not going to want to talk around other women, and they're probably not going to want to talk around other men because of that stereotype, right? So, so that may be something to look into.
But right now I'm really focused on my divorce recovery immersion program, which is a group program. Sounds nice. So that's why I'm saying that I'm working with women. I would love to work with men, but for the purpose of this program, it is in a group. I mean, that's a lot of the power, is to have a community who is in it with you, so that you can see the commonality. And I wanted to go back to the reason I brought up child rearing was because we're in the same place with divorce for men and women, where, okay, it's common, but there's no roadmap. There's no precedences set for how do we do it differently. Just like there's no how do we do it child rearing differently, there's no how do we do divorce differently. My daughter's father and I hate to call him my ex, he's still in my life. He came over yesterday and had Easter brunch with us. We split as amicably as you can after having gone through what we went through. But we knew we wanted it to be friendly. We knew we wanted it to still be a unit that was there for our daughter.
Yeah.
But we had no guidance. It was like, how do we do this? So yeah, it's a new paradigm.
A lot of people forget, and I actually reference this in my book. A lot of people forget that when a relationship ends, during the relationship, there's some aspect of love in that relationship, whether it's 6 months, 3 months, whether you're just sleeping with the person, there's some aspect of feelings in there, right? So if the relationship doesn't end well, the only reason that it wouldn't be amicable is because people are reacting rather than responding. They're not responding to the situation. They're reacting to the emotions that the situation caused in them. So that's definitely a negative that most people perceive, and they carry that forward into their next relationships, into the relationship that they have with themselves. Are you eating right now?
Yes.
I'm on a live webinar.
So I'm just going to be like 5 minutes.
Anyway, my mother is just about to cook something in the microwave. So
a little buzz is going to start.
So that's the noise you're going to hear for the next 5 minutes. Okay. All right.
But I agree with you completely that, so much of, and that's where the cultural thing comes in too, is we've been raised to react. Or for the most part, our culture is all about reaction rather than responding. And that's Absolutely. A lot of the work we do in the divorce recovery immersion, is looking at your patterned emotions and your habitual thoughts and kind of replacing those, which requires that you look at how you're reacting.
Yeah.
Rather than responding.
and that goes hand in hand, right? Like so many people, again, spend their life reacting to different things. And that's not just with divorce, that's with family, friends, work, life in general, self-love. All of it is this combination of emotions that we're reacting to and allowing to control where we move forward, what lessons we learn, where futuristically we create that space for what's to come.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what I do, and the funny thing is that what I do with my mindset work is I take, she's trying to sneak into the bathroom. With what I do and the mindset work, you also do mindset work in that, right? You take people's emotions and their traumas, you find the lessons in there, how to move forward, how to live your life in the truest sense for yourself, right? And in writing my book and in creating my offers based off of the book and what I do with the mindset coaching, I find that most people have 5 pillars that they do for mindset. There's relationships there's yourself, right? So you have your pillar with yourself. You have your mindset surrounding yourself. You've got your mindset regarding your partner. You've got your mindset regarding your family, your mindset regarding your friends, and your mindset regarding your business. Now, yourself includes your spirituality, your self-love, the way you routine your life and the way you see yourself, right? So once you go to the partner, you have limiting beliefs, right? And that you have limiting beliefs about what you're taking from that relationship ending, what you're taking moving forward is you've got to incorporate, okay, well, what do I feel about myself? What is this teaching me? A lot of people will take mindset out of that to say, well, this relationship failed, it ended. How am I even going to be capable of starting another one?
Well, yes. And
right?
it's all,
so it all kind of ties in together. And that's what I'm realizing.
And it's, at the end of my program, we talk about, okay, where are you going from here? And which is reflection on what do you want? You cannot create a relationship that really supports you until you're stepping in to you.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
So it's that exactly what you were saying. I told you we had a lot of things in common.
Oh yeah. I just created a PDF on, and it's funny, it's not done yet. It needs to be edited, but it's actually called 7 Ways You May Be Ruining Your Relationships. And it details out, and a lot of it is, what you're doing, what you're putting into that relationship. One of the number 1 lessons that comes from the book, and I'm sorry I keep promoting the book, and it's because I'm so totally excited about it. One of the things in the book is that people base their relationships off of their expectations. When you're manifesting a spouse or trying to create that ideal spouse, you're like, oh, I want him to be tall, dark, and handsome and rich and drive a sports car. Well, I'm sorry, ladies, but you're wrong. Men, you're wrong too. You sit there and you think, okay, well, what is this person going to do for me? Okay, yeah, you're going to get the tall, dark, rich, and handsome, and he's going to turn out to be a raging asshole who probably neglects you or abuses you. Now, I'm not saying you've got to go for somebody who isn't good looking, but that's not the focus. The focus is, what is this person going to make me feel? What am I going to feel in the relationship? Am I going to feel safe? Am I going to feel protected? Am I going to feel supported? It's not about what you want from the other person. It's what you want to feel.
Well, that's very similar to my take in that it's my approach is that we are all here to express who we are at soul level, to express our unique divinity. And so when you get in line with that and you make that your priority, then your question entering in a relationship is, what would a being who supported my truest essence, who would that be? What would their characteristics be? And yes, how do I want them to make me feel is, a part of that, but what does it take for me to feel the way I want to feel?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Who can
So we do have a couple comments. I want to say, Susan, don't go anywhere because I have a question that's basically going to answer that. So just hold on. So Peggy says she cut cords from her ex. She's got bad memories. He was very controlling and emotionally abusive. Now, again, there's lessons in that. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but for me, there's a lot of lessons around abusive relationships, and that's loving yourself enough to end them and loving yourself enough to identify what's toxic in a relationship. With Susan, her comment is, I need help in determining to end a relationship. And I actually have a question for Theresa that's probably going to answer that one for you. So we'll move on quickly to those questions that I have that are probably going to answer theirs.
Okay. And will I get a chance to address?
You can address Peggy's right now if you'd like.
Okay.
But your answer will Susan's will be after.
Okay. So for Peggy, I would say, why, if you've cut the cord, if you've truly cut the cord, and a lot of cord cutting is your intention. I mean, you can cut cords all day long, but if you don't engender in yourself the belief and the feeling and the certainty that that cord is cut, then it's not really cut. Like, it's not, okay, I'm cutting this and hoping the universe takes care of me. No, cut the cord. And I say that because if you are referencing that your ex's behavior, then you're putting your focus, you're putting your attention on him. And where, you know, it's old cliche, but where attention goes, energy flows. So you're flowing your energy out to him rather than nurturing who you are and who you want to be. So I would just ask you to redirect and look at that thought process and see where you can tweak it in a way that really empowers you to be the most and best of what you truly want to be.
Yeah. Again, and I hate to say it, but this is what happens when we talk about relationships. Again, I had a relationship where I was neglected and really put down and not loved in a relationship, one of the ones I reference. And instead of focusing on how I was treated and what happened with me in that time, instead of focusing on his behavior, I focused on my behavior. I also focused on my beliefs and my lessons that I took from that relationship. All of my relationships before Tom had a negative aspect. And the reason they had a negative aspect was to teach me what I needed to change, what I needed to reference, and what I needed to do to move forward to create that positive relationship, not only with my partner, but also with myself. So that would also be good for that cord cutting too, is like Theresa said, really set that intention to cut the cord. You've also got to heal and release that anger or those feelings that you have to that. You should be able to look back at your relationships with love, even if you were severely physically abused. You should be able to look back at those relationships with love because they made a vital change in the way you look at yourself. So that's one of the things that I learned. Okay, so a couple more questions. I'm going to ask these last, but I will mention your steps. You have the steps, the 5 steps that you wanted to share. So we'll do that last. But I have questions for you in regards to what would you give advice to certain women about? So when it comes to women who are thinking of divorce or thinking of ending relationships, whether they're just, you know, in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, fiance situation, or a marriage, what would you suggest to women or men who are looking to end a relationship?
Are you saying looking to end or trying to decide if they want to?
I would say both.
Okay.
And the next part of that is people who are going through it. So I think the end could kind of go into that section, but that's up to you.
I would say if you're looking to end it, the first thing to do is look at how you want that ending to look and get really, really solid in how you'd like it to be, so that you position yourself to not be in reactionary mode, and so that you are coming from a place of what works for me. And then from there, just kind of make that your guiding light. Does this work for me? And be very, very, it's so easy to get swept up in how divorces are done and how it has to look, and to be in that reactionary mode. And the only way, your strongest defense against that, is to be super clear about what you want and who you want to be.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah.
Very nice. Now, I would add to that, when you're thinking of ending it, or when you're in the process of starting that ending, along with being clear, is to understand that that's not only going to be your situation, it's the other person's as well. So love, compassion, and understanding. Just because you're ending the relationship doesn't mean you need to put that reaction on there. You can come from a place of self-love, of understanding where the other person is feeling those pain points, and compassion to know that, you know, they're reacting, you're not. Right? And just have that understanding, right? So for people who are thinking whether or not to end it.
Again, I come back to the same thing over and over again, is really, what do you want? What do you want regardless of whether you're in the relationship or not? And who do you want to be? How do you want your life to unfold? You know, when you're sitting on the rocking chair, looking over your life, knowing you're going to die soon, what would make it no regrets? And use that. Okay, is this person somebody who can support me in that? Is this person, what does he or she have to offer me that will support that life trajectory? And you know, it's kind of like a balance sheet. Is this somebody who can support me in that, or is it not? And is it worth it to me to stay in this marriage for the sake of, or this relationship, for the sake of staying in the relationship? Or does it really work for me to be free and unfettered? And there's so many layers to that, and so many things to consider.
Absolutely.
And it is, you know, can I leave this person without feeling bad about myself? You have to consider that as well. And that's a huge, get really clear on that item to get clear on. And ideally, if you're coming from the point of view of, I am here to express my divinity, I'm here to take that magic, wonderful, divine being that I know is really me and bring it into this corporeal life. If that's your standard, it becomes really clear. And I think that's a lot of the work I do with all my clients, and especially in the divorce recovery immersion program, is getting really clear on who that person is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm going to mention that anybody who is going through those relationship, the thought of divorce, wondering whether or not you should be in the relationship that you're in, I'm coming out with some stuff around relationships. But if you're at that point where you're thinking that you're, you know, just about done, or you've gone through the divorce, or it's after the divorce, I would highly recommend you check out Theresa's website. It's theresawoodsong.com. And she also has a 5-step guide that she's going to explain right now, that can also help you. And she's going to tell you whatever else she's got going on. And then before you do that, actually, I want to know what you do. What do you do for fun? What do you do outside of your business? Because I know that we're all multi-passionate women who, you know, all of our energy and all of our beings go towards our business. And that's the first thing we want to talk about and express. But we also need to remember that we're divine individuals as well. So what do you do for you?
Oh, well, I'm never bored. Let's put it this way. I love to cook. I mentioned yesterday or earlier that I had cooked a big family brunch for Easter yesterday. I literally started Friday afternoon for a meal that we demolished in 20 minutes. I love to cook. I love supporting my local farmers. And I love the difference between, organic, non-GMO, lovingly raised, intentionally created food that's like pure the way it was designed by nature.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about that. Which also brings me into gardening and plants. I love plants and gardening, and I'm a essential oil nerd. And I love all things fiber, knitting, crocheting, quilting, soft sculpture. I cannot go into a fabric store with a credit card. That's just not something I allow myself to do.
I can't go into a crystal or tarot store with
Credit card.
I've got like 20 card decks, and I make crystal jewelry, so I've probably spent like $5,000 on crystals, and
yeah. So you understand it.
Oh, I totally get that.
And I could do this and I could do that. And what if I put these two things together? Yes.
Yeah, I was right before we went live. We were talking about my jewelry, which is behind me. I seriously considered, you had mentioned my necklace, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should make myself a crystal necklace. Not necessarily a mala because they are very long, but just a nice small one to wear around my neck whenever I'm feeling the need. What? Well, come here. Sorry. Just for anybody watching, Haley, my little pain in the ass 3-year-old, is not feeling the greatest this afternoon and has just come down with a runny nose. And if you were to see the snot rags that are piling up on my tables right now, you'd probably go nuts. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So next point of topic, like I'd mentioned already, you've got that 5-step guide that you live by and that you offer your followers. So how do you get it and what is it?
Okay, the 5-step guide is basically the divorce recovery immersion 7-week program distilled on one little cheat sheet.
Okay.
And it's a very broad spectrum approach, but it gives you the foundational essence of the steps that you need to take. And the first one is I don't even have it as a step because it's such a large umbrella, but that's using your powers of choice and energy to intentionally create your divorce, that situation, as a bright new beginning. Yeah. And beneath that, the steps are looking at your habitual emotions, the reactionary emotions that you fall into, your pattern thoughts. And that is just some serious introspection. And as I mentioned earlier, it can be really, really difficult to even recognize what those are because we are so involved with them and they become so much of our identity and so deeply programmed that it's hard to recognize them. Oh, I don't know what my pattern thoughts are because they're patterns, right? You don't see them. So I recommend, and this is on the sheet, that you think of something you really love to do and just let yourself sink into that in your imagination and observe how you feel and how you think when you're in that process. And then use that as a standard. I recommend the mindfulness bell. It's an app you can get on your phone or something along that line that just gives you an indication several times a day to check in. And is how I'm thinking, is how I'm feeling in alignment with how I feel when I'm doing what I love. That's just a real vanilla way to start making you aware what you're doing with yourself. Another step is to expand your capacity to perceive, because there's a phenomenon that we we see what you want to see and you hear what you want to hear. And when you've made a decision, you're going to see things that align with that. And you're going to, at the same time, kind of disregard things that don't align with it. So really broadening your perception is another.
Well, absolutely. I want to touch on that one because I had that experience the other day, and I don't know if any of my followers were paying attention. But the other day I made a post, and what it was is Tom was having a very bad day. And in that, he shut me out. And in 10 years, he's never shut me out. And he did something he's never done before. And that, again, like I said, was shutting me out. And that terrified me. And so you all know me. I'm a negativity. I'd rather focus on the negativity and get it over with so that I can on the positivity, right? And in that, I went worst case scenario. And I had a very, even for me to focus on the positivity, I had a very hard time removing from that worst case scenario. And as soon as I put myself into that worst case scenario, I ended up focusing, okay, well, this makes sense and this makes sense. And all of these coincidences started popping up, enforcing that worst case scenario. It was nowhere near that worst case scenario, but that's where I went. And once you allow your mindset to go there, if you're not properly equipped, which I am, you have a very hard time getting out of there. I spent probably an hour crying and very sullen because I started feeling what it would be like for him to shut me out in that way. And the next day we were all good. We ended up having our talk that evening to, you know, kind of iron out what he was going through, but it had nothing to do with me. And going worst case scenario is not always the best idea. Writing out what your fears are. What I didn't do is I went worst case scenario. My mind went, no, that's never going to happen. But I didn't listen. So it's whether or not you listen to your ego or your, you know, proper divine being. So.
Well, and that's the whole thing about perception is you were stuck in your fear and how it's for you, instead of broadening the perception and going, oh, what if it doesn't have anything to do with me? Yeah. You know, what if it's just him having a really crappy day?
Oddly enough, going through that worst case scenario was actually a positive for me. Spending that half a day in the worst case scenario, thinking that, you know, possibly my marriage was over because he'd never cut me out. I actually came to terms with what I would do in that situation. And I felt that pain and I said, okay, well, you know, even if this is what it is, and I made a post about it, even if a relationship or a situation doesn't go the way that you anticipated it was going to go, doesn't mean that it's a failure, doesn't mean that, you know, it's like they say, if you love it, let it go, right? And that I came to terms with what I would do if I was in that situation.
Well, and I would say that was a shift in perception, right? It was like, and that's, well, that's another story, but that is a tool that you can use to shift your perception. Oh, you know what? I won't necessarily flat out die. Yeah. You know, I won't necessarily have to be miserable for the rest of my life. Those are new perceptions. And, you know, I would prefer to do it in a way that I didn't cry for half a day, but that is another, you know, there are two different layers of emotions when you're talking about divorce. And that is the habitual ones, which is what I mentioned. And there's also, you know, when you go through divorce, there's a lot of pain. Oh, there's absolutely. A lot of anger. There's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of disappointment. There's feelings of failure. And you have to look at those. Yeah. Right. You can't just stuff them down and ignore them, or they're going to come up later and get you. So
and in a different way.
Right. In a different way. So those are the, you know, yes, there's different aspects of emotions. And I did not mention that earlier. Another, and I've already alluded to this, the step 3 on my guide is to get really clear about what it is, who you'd like to be, what you'd like to look what you'd like your life to look like, and who you want to be showing up as in your life. That's step 3. And step 4 is to get become at cause in all your relationships. So look at all your relationships.
You keep going. I just have to stand up for a minute.
Okay. Look at all your relationships and see who you want to be in those. And where are you just conforming to societal expectations? Where are you making yourself fit into the role of what you believe that relationship would be, and what actually works for you? Because to show up as who you really are, you can't be forcing yourself into set roles. You have to be who you are. So, and how does that interact with different relationships? And I have to put in, I'm getting way more deep into this than I intended to, but I keep saying, who do you want to be? Make it all about you. As an aware woman, you really can't make choices that don't consider the people in your life. So when I say make it all about you, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want your life to look like? That involves all those people. So there is that compassion and that caring that necessarily comes in, but you have to be strong in who you want to be within that context.
Absolutely.
Yes, very much so. And then the 5th step is to actually have a plan, have your, the saying, reach for something better. Like, okay, this is what I want when things don't go the way I want. What's my coping skill? What am I going to pull out of my bag to keep me on track and keep the end in mind and keep my personal priorities in mind? So you need a really solid plan. And my divorce recovery intensive, of course, or immersion supports all of these. And you can get a copy of this at theresawoodsong.com. It's a 1-page, gives you a little bit of detail on each of these 5 steps. But I'm starting next Tuesday, a Facebook Live series, a 5-week series, where I will go more in depth on each of these steps and give you, that's what it means. That's what I need to be doing. So that will be on facebook.com / / that goes like this, Theresa Woodsong.
You know what I would ask you to do is share that onto my business page so that any of my followers who are interested in that live can absolutely follow along, like your page, and get notified as you go live for that series. I think that it would be very valuable, and I would highly suggest that anybody who is experiencing your pain points definitely check it out and participate.
And of course, I have to throw in, if you get the guide, you will then automatically receive notifications and reminders of when those lives are going to be.
Absolutely, because it's email, right? Probably part of your email list. Perfect.
Right.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share for our followers? Anything about your business? Anything that other than that you've got going on? Any little tidbits or anything that you'd like to discuss? Maybe something that I do.
The main thing I would really just like to leave people with is you always have the power of choice. You always, no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what your situation is, no matter what evil, creepy little being may be in your life with you right now, that you can change it all. Like, you can make it a bright new beginning. And there are people out here, whether it's Melissa, or whether it's me, or whether it's somebody else, who knows how to give you the tools and the support and the guidance that you need, because it is unknown territory.
Yeah.
And, the world is changing really fast, and we can all work together to make that just delicious for all of us.
I actually came out with some content today. Just, you know, how we brain dump and content creation and stuff like that. So one of them was actually, I'm probably going to combine a few of them because I can't remember word for word what it said.
Right.
But along the lines of, you can change your clothes, you can change your eating habits, you can change your career, you can change every aspect of your life. You can even change what sex you are. And like, that shocks people, right? But if you can do all of that, why can't you change your mindset to create the life of your dreams? Why can't you create that freedom for yourself, right? Nobody's going to do, oh, that's yucky. Nobody's going to, if you don't like doing what you're told, why are you not, making changes? So there's a lot of things people don't understand. They feel stuck, they feel lost and confused, and everybody has the ability to change their life, to change their circumstances. And I loved a comment that you made earlier about if you don't like where your life is, change it, right? Because I can't even remember where I was going with that. It was super valuable. And that's, me being blonde for a moment there. It's
You were
just
on the we can change anything.
Yeah. And you know what? People feel like they're victims of their circumstances and victims of their traumas. And honestly, you're not. You're not a victim. Once that trauma is over, you are no longer a victim. And 90% of the time, unless you're a child or an animal who physically can't change it, you have a choice.
Exactly.
You have a choice. So that is, can you stop, please? Oh, she's driving me nuts. So I wanted to launch a couple things that I have going on. So make sure that you head on over to Theresa's website, sign up for her 5 steps and her mailing list. And speaking of mailing lists, so I am coming out with a book, an ebook, in the next few weeks. I'm going to be doing a pre-sale. I'm going to be doing a 7-day challenge, free challenge on Facebook with it. And I'm also going to be sending out a free PDF on 7 ways you may be ruining your relationships, because trust me, that's part of it. And Theresa, you actually touched on one of them, is making it all about yourself. Sometimes that ruins relationships if you're not considering the other people's feelings and lives. So making it about yourself is great for the most part, but sometimes we can cause a lot of issues. Can you get off the table?
Well, and I think there's a fine distinction there, and which I tried to address, is if you're being really honest and really open, you can't make it all about yourself without considering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that topic for me, and the way I explained it, is if you're out with friends, or if you have plans with a friend and last minute they cancel, and they do this repeatedly, is it because they don't like you? Probably not. It probably has something to do with their limiting beliefs and, their level of comfort. And you never know what's going on in somebody else's life. We can't take offense to everything somebody says, right? And there's a lot more. I've got 7 ways that we ruin our own relationships. But yeah, so check that out. Make sure you enter my mailing list. You can do that at melissacrutchler.com. Make sure you enter Theresa's mailing list at theresawoodsong.com, and get caught up on the latest stuff. I've got a book coming out, and it is all about my past relationships and how I was able to learn lessons to create the spouse of my dreams. So they're not failures. They're loving experiences. It's exactly what they are. So, well, I am super excited. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to let you go and continue on with your day. I'm going to go deal with my sick little sneezing brat over there, who has done very amazing for not feeling good. So I'm quite proud of my kids today. So yes, thank you very much for joining me. I absolutely loved hosting you. And I can't wait to do it again because I'm sure you will be back with some great news in the next few months. So
Definitely. Thank you,
I
dear.
can't wait. Don't forget to share your live, all that information onto my onto my page.
Okay.
And Theresa's website is located on melissacrutchler.com/Melissa's Monday Madness. So make sure you go check that out. The replay will be available tomorrow as well on the website and YouTube. So looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Theresa. Have a wonderful afternoon. And to everybody else, much love and positivity. Make sure, if you're just catching it, to watch the replay, and I will talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.